Welcome to Morning Mika. We're going to delve into what can be the extremely complicated dynamics of love between a mother and daughter. Vanity Fair special correspondent and MSNBC political analyst Molly Jong-Fast is here to talk about her compelling new book, How to Lose Your Mother. Simone Sanders Townsend and Huma Abedin are also here for the conversation. Molly's book is about her relationship with her mom, Erica Jong, a supremely talented and famous author who also suffered from alcoholism and eventually dementia. It is a heavy, gripping read, and we're going to talk about why. But first, since we're talking about how moms and daughters relate, let's just say it's not always easy and it's seldom perfect. For many of us, it's challenging. It can be plagued by generational cycles. I look at the relationship with my mom and my own daughters. My mother, Emily Benish Brzezinski, was a brilliant sculptor who created massive monuments, pieces, sculptures with a chainsaw. Many are on display to this day around the world. She was also a refugee of war, escaping Hitler as a child and beginning again here in America. During wartime, she was shipped out to the country in England, like millions of children escaping the Nazis' blitz in London during the Battle of Britain. She lived in an orphanage and would become so hungry that she feared starvation, often only eating nuts. From that experience of deprivation to adjusting to life in America, she was extremely fearful of wasting food and salvaged things that most would see as garbage. If it was still useful to my mother, it was valuable. As a child, I rebelled against all of her ways of doing things and her habits. She took that picture, I wouldn't smile. Her refusal to buy new clothes. We all had to go to secondhand stores like the one in McLean, Virginia. This was horrifying and embarrassing to me as I was trying to make friends, and nobody did that in McLean, Virginia. Her messy kitchen and the food that she kept for so long, it drove me crazy. She would say she was an artist first and not a housewife. She said it every day. And the sound of her chomping on a handful of nuts drove me crazy. She was always eating nuts, and yet I never made the connection. We fought a lot, vigorously at times. I wanted to be like the other kids. I saw my mom as an impediment to all the things that I needed in my life to be normal and like other American kids. When in reality, as an adult, I came to learn that all I needed was her and her ways. When I had my own little girls, my mom and I were still butting heads. One fight was so ridiculous and so loud, and my girls were watching from the steps of our house in Maine. My 5-year-old daughter, Amelia, interjected, shouting, "Mom, stop. Someday Bumba is going to be dead, and you're going to hate yourself." Everybody was very quiet and embarrassed. I was horrified, and I saw myself, the hideous daughter and mother, all in one. It was a transformational moment for me. I'll never forget it. It cut through me. I saw myself in that moment, and I stopped cold turkey. I never shouted at my mother again, ever. And in fact, for the next 25 years, we would celebrate a closeness that grew stronger and more joyful every day. Amelia's admonition made space for a whole new way of relating with my mother, starting with acceptance and empathy and leaving any frustration to the past. I was able to be there for her in ways that I never was before, and when she lost her husband, my dad, I was really glad to be in a position where I could actually help her and support her. We never laughed as hard as we did in her final years, and I am grateful beyond words to my daughter Amelia and for that precious time to love my mom. Make no mistake, I was a tough one to raise, and she said it often. I began to celebrate her cutting Eastern European criticisms, and I even miss them so much. So now when I look at my relationship with my daughters, they're in their late 20s now, I also faced challenges. It was not natural to me. My girls will tell you I was not perfect. They probably will say much worse. I noticed some generational parallels, some cycles of behavior that we're still working on today. Even today, I'm learning to validate and to show love in genuine, authentic ways. Bottom line, for a lot of mothers and daughters, it is so hard and also worth every second. And Molly, that's why I was gripped by your book. I was reading every word of it, praying for a connection between you and your mom. And I think it came in the form of acceptance, but it was so hard. Tell us about your mom and why you wrote the book.
Yeah, that was such an incredible introduction and so moving. And I got to see your relationship with your mom a little bit peripherally, and it is really wonderful. And I think so much of my mom, I saw how she was really a product of her time, right? She had born in 1942 in a completely different universe in a lot of ways, right? She was, women were just raised to not be, the way we are now, not to be independent necessarily. My mother is incredibly brilliant, and I honestly believe that she is the reason that I'm able to sort of suspend my disbelief and continue my career even when I face rejection, because she really did instill in me this belief that I could sort of do the impossible. And I have to wonder if that isn't sort of the most we could even ask for from our parents. And I love that you talked about your own parenting. For me, also challenging to be a parent, especially coming from, I grew up in an interesting intellectual way, but not necessarily in a family household with other kids. And so I have a lot of children, and it is quite strange to, have a house that's filled with kids. So I do think there were a lot of adjustments for me too. But when you talk about your mom and this idea that she was so much a product of World War II and the kind of trauma, I think of my mom as, she lived in Heidelberg during the Vietnam War. She was really sort of cast into second wave feminism. She kind of wanted to be an academic. I think she also wanted to be famous too. But, she was not necessarily set up for that job. And really being the woman who sort of introduced sex to a generation may have not been the greatest feeling.
Molly, even now, as you're talking about your book, you're blending humor and candor, and in the book you also blend a little grief. I'm wondering altogether, how did writing this book help you better understand your own complicated relationship with your mother? And then what did you learn about yourself?
So I really wanted to write this book because my husband got diagnosed with cancer, and I was going back and forth between Sloan Kettering and New York Hospital, where my stepfather was being hospitalized. And then his father fell, and he was in the hospital in Connecticut. And so I was going from these 3 different hospitals, and I was thinking to myself, this is not great, but because I'm sober since I was 19, and because I'm able to manage things, and I felt like there was a really great lesson there that I could impart on readers about what it's like when things really go wrong and how you can actually get through it. And we would have these moments, my husband and I, there was just, he's in remission. He ended up having this very slow-moving cancer, but they found it in the pancreas. And there was a long time of, is this pancreatic cancer? What stage is it at? What does this mean for us? So there was a lot of is he going to see the kids graduate college? Is he going to see this? Is he going to see that? And a lot of, a third of all Americans will get cancer, right? So this is not some unusual conversation. This conversation is happening in, millions of homes. And so I did really want to write about that because I do think you can, and there were certain little tricks I figured out for like keeping life normal for the kids. Like my older one, I didn't have him come home from college. I just did certain things to try to encourage them to stay in their lives and not get overly involved in ours. And I think it worked pretty well, all things considered. And so I did feel like there's stuff to glean from that is about how you can go through anything.
Molly, I have to tell you, I read this book in one sitting, and it is packed with so much.
Me too.
I was that problem child that had that complicated relationship with my mother. I blamed her for everything. I remember even when my father died when I was 17, I blamed it on her. And to see you write about these so many complicated relationships with such sort of beauty and just it's raw but matter of fact in the same way. And I think lots of women who are in their 40s, especially those of us who are dealing with a parent who has memory issues, more friends than I can count are dealing with this, and I put myself in that category. And I remember talking to my mother's doctor at the beginning of her journey, and that's what she said. Your mother is on a journey. You just have to go on this journey with her. And you talk a lot about grief in the book. And frankly, I feel like I'm going through a grieving process with my mother in real time.
Yeah.
But I want to quote something that you wrote. And this is what you said and really resonated and will resonate with many readers. I had spent my entire life trying to get away from the loneliness of being abandoned by my parents. I assumed this would somehow preclude me from mourning their deaths. You can't cheat grief. Even if your parents never loved you, or you never loved them, or some weird combination of the two, grief still comes for all of us. So my question is, if grief comes to all of us, what did you learn about getting through it?
Yeah, I mean, thank you for reading that, and thank you for that for what you said. And it's very normal to get into a loved one's dementia and start grieving them because it's the loss is real, right? There's no, even if the physical body is there, the person is not the person you know. So, and I think we see this more and more. And again, our generation, this Generation X, we're not written about as much. So we don't, we are in this moment, this sandwich moment with the elderly parents and the kids. And there's just not a ton of guidance, I feel like, to a certain extent. I think for me, what I learned was that you have to go through it all, that there's no easy way to get around it. And as someone who got sober when I was 19, I really thought you could sort of cheat certain things and get through them, with whatever, a lot of coffee or something. But actually, you have to sort of go through everything. And my mom was so, she did things for me that I didn't even know to want. She made me, some of the best things about my kids come from her. Some, the sort of, just so much of me is her that I am so incredibly grateful to her. And she also, the other thing is she had this very mean mom, and she was able to be a very loving mom to me, which, is not so easy to be able to sort of shift the narrative. So I do feel extremely grateful to have gotten to be mothered by her. And I hope that we can just start talking about it. And the real message is you don't have to do it perfectly, right? You're gonna just do it as well as you can, and that's okay.
Molly, I've had to grab a tissue since I was sitting here because your book is just so good. It is. And I have a friend who is literally going through what, as we're all talking about, dealing with an aging parent right now, trying to figure out what to do, trying to deal with things in their own lives. And I was just talking to her this morning, and I was like, I'm gonna pull it together and go talk to Mika, Molly, and Huma. And as I'm sitting here listening to you talk, I'm like, oh my goodness, people need this book because folks don't talk enough about it. And I think You know, a lot of people feel like maybe they're not doing enough or they're doing too little when they're caring for an aging parent. Can you just tell us about how you grappled with those feelings? I'm gonna take some notes to take it back to my good girlfriend right now. But I mean, when you were navigating your mother's decline, I could just imagine the immense weight that you felt while you're also dealing with all these other things in your life.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely still feel terrible about the whole thing. And it's not how I wanted it to go down. Like, the way Mika did it, where she had her mom in there and was really, like, that's what I wanted. It couldn't happen because of a number of other circumstances, but I couldn't. And that's what it is. And that's, I think, so important to be like, it's okay, you just do the best you can. So much of life is just being able to do the best you can. And I think it's also good for our kids to see that we are just all humans having this human experience, doing the best we can, and we're not gonna be superheroes, we're going to fail, and that's okay. And I think, look, as women, we deal with a lot of expectations that we can do multiple things, job, parenting, having parents, and sometimes we can't. And that was where I got to, was that sometimes you just can't do everything.
Molly, I really feel like this book is a masterclass in navigating those complicated familial relationships, the legacies our families leave behind. What do you hope readers take away from How to Lose Your Mother?
I want people to not feel bad. I mean, I really think life is so hard. We have so many different things coming at us, and I just want people, you do the best you can with your parents, you do the best you can with your kids. It's a lot of stuff, especially with kids, are really out of your control. And so all I really want is for people to feel that they're doing well enough and not to blame themselves or to feel recrimination. You don't feel as bad about yourself with your relationship with your parents as I really did torture myself for. It doesn't make life any better for anyone.
Wow, love this conversation. It's raw, it's real, and the book is incredible. Molly Jong-Fast, thank you so much. Her book, How to Lose Your Mother, is out now. Simone and Huma, thank you as well. That does it for Morning Mika. We'll see you soon on YouTube and Peacock.